Rates for the second time in a decade this Wednesday. So how are global markets behaving, particularly your emerging market currencies?
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me. The markets basically have been, pricing in an increase in interest rates in America for the longest of, or for the bigger part of this year. We last had a rate increase last year in December, so literally 1 year later, and under similar circumstances where we had Janet Yellen being pushed to increase interest rates by the market, and we seem to be exactly where we were last year, and the market is looking for 25 basis points increase in interest rates in the USA, and I think the market has priced that in. We will probably see emerging markets currencies come off a little bit, but I think we've priced this in already. It's something that we've been expecting to happen. So I don't know if there will be that much of a big reaction to any increase in the US interest rates.
Okay, and then on to oil now. Oil prices hit $57 a barrel on the latest non-OPEC agreement to cut output. Are these levels likely to be short-lived? And if not, what does this mean for global inflation and more specifically South African inflation?
It's a very important consideration, Nombo, because the price of oil in South Africa determines what happens to inflation in the country, and ultimately the inflation trend in the country gives guidance to the team at the Reserve Bank in terms of what they do with the interest rate. So it's a very important consideration for us, especially given the poor GDP growth we have and the fact that we've been struggling to get inflation to come below 6%, which is what the Reserve Bank team has been expecting to happen for inflation. You remember they've got a 3 to 6% band that they're targeting to keep interest or rather keep inflation in that band. More importantly, an oil price at 56 is extremely inflationary. And I think that if it does sustain these levels with the non-OPEC and OPEC members targeting a price of $60 for 1 barrel, if it does go all the way up to $60 a barrel, we could have challenges on our side in terms of being able to pass on prices to the consumers out there. And I think we've seen retailers in South Africa struggling to pass on prices already. But I think that the interest rate environment starts to change once again, because with inflation going up, we're risking seeing more interest rates increases coming through.
But then again, there's always the issue that if oil prices do rise, then your US shale gas producers may come in, step into the gap, and ultimately keep oil prices lower.
Yes, not only that, the other issue is that the members themselves of both these bodies, the non-OPEC and the OPEC members of these oil-producing countries, previously, some of them have been accused of not sticking to the barrel cuts on a daily production basis. So we could see some guys still continue to fire at all cylinders. And one thing to take into cognizance is the fact that there's a lot of oil in supply at the moment, and the guys are just trying to get rid of that glut and make sure that they don't produce anymore, and people go out there and they start buying more of this oil to make sure that down the line, at least the prices realign with what the expectations of the group is at $60 a barrel. And then, if the price of oil does tick up, I worry that we could potentially see the fracking guys, the guys that do shale gas, come back to trail, starting to drill again. And if they do that, then potentially we could see the price of oil start to come off as well, because they are really in serious competition with shale gas producers. The big producers don't want to make sure that they're creating an environment where they're creating competition for themselves. And that being said, if the shale gas producers start coming into line, you will see that OPEC will also make sure that they compete aggressively with them, which is actually why we saw the price of oil go all the way to $30. So I do think that if oil price does tick to 60 and above, we will see more players coming to compete with the traditional oil producers.
All right, now let's take a look at some stocks now. We hear that President Zuma has given Lonmin an ultimatum on its social and labor plans, particularly in relation to its provision of housing, saying that if they don't comply with the DMR, it will revoke their mining right. How did the particular stock react in terms of the share price? And if you're an investor, should you be concerned?
Look, I think there's a lot that Lonmin has gone through, and I think government does understand Lonmin's position as well. The company has had to restructure, has had to lay off people, and we're in an environment where it's very hard to create jobs. I'm skeptical about a summary dismissal of people or a summary closure of this business, because we do need those jobs out there that Lonmin is actually currently holding up, in the belt where Lonmin operates. And if the government does take away Lonmin's license, I mean, Lonmin is likely going to, or rather people are going to lose their jobs. And I think it's a double-edged sword for the government. But I know that there's been lots of discussions around Lonmin keeping to their side of the bargain. They promised to create several thousands of houses for people that work in Lonmin and to relook and reevaluate their social impact programs to make sure that the areas where they operate, Lonmin's impact is actually visible. And I really hope that the management in Lonmin will do its best to make sure they avoid losing this license. They need to be good to those commitments, and otherwise, they could end up losing the license. And the repercussions of them losing a license are far broader than that, because I don't know if it'll be very easy for someone to come and buy the mining license from Lonmin if they were to lose their license.
Now, part of the reason why people invest is ultimately to get wealthy. But in South Africa, we know this is a very unequal society. But it was interesting to see that in the Sunday Times rich list over the weekend, out of 250 wealthy individuals, some 45 of those are black. When you look at that, to what extent or what proportion of those people have actually made their wealth from scratch, that are non-BEE type thing, and 45 out of 250, are we making progress?
Yes, it's an interesting question, and I actually think I saw your name on the list, Nombu, and I could be wrong. But basically, I think that 45 out of such a big and extensive list is not good enough. It's worse if you start to dig deeper into the numbers and you realize that there isn't that many women that feature actually in the list of the rich list in the country. There's probably, I think, about 10 odd, and I think that we need to be doing more, Nombu. We need to make sure that the bill codes that are being promulgated now can create more people that are wealthy. But more importantly, I do believe that the government should make it imperative on anyone who has benefited from BE to actually make sure that they're creating more beneficiaries of the system. And I think that we need corporate South Africa to actually start looking at BE positively and saying, let us foster BE and make sure that more people can benefit from the system. I would much rather that list had about maybe 100,000 people who are worth, say, 5 to 10 million rands than have this disparity that we have at the moment, where you've got only a few people dominating that list, as it were. And I really think that we shouldn't necessarily be too negative about it. Things could have been worse. It's okay that the government has taken steps to make sure that we readdress the disparities in the economy. And yes, we will always be a capitalist economy. People who are in the right circles at the right time are always going to benefit from an environment that supports BE participation. And I really do think that we're going to start to see a new wave of black people creating businesses that don't hinge on being black, but just excellent work, excellent service delivery. I hope that that's the next wave, Nombu, that we will start to see. But we have seen new entrants into the space. If you're looking across the list, we've got generally people in the property space. By virtue of numbers as a sector, property has contributed quite a lot of our new millionaires into the country, and I think that's an indication of where you should be putting your money going into 2017.
Okay then, Owen, that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you for your positive insights. That was Owen Nkomo, he's MD at Inkunzi Wealth. Well, more business news for you after a break.